All right, well, welcome back to the iWealth podcast, and today we're with the owner, Mr. Brad Connors, and we're talking a little bit about college. You got a son that's coming up quick, Mr. Corbin, on the college thing. Now that you're on the forefront of it with a kid that's going off to college, what are you seeing in that space that your clients are kind of talking with you about?
Yeah, it's interesting. This conversation comes up a lot because I'm living through it.
Yep.
But also I have a lot of clients that are going through it too, where they're either their grandkids, but a lot of clients, children that are getting to that age of like, what are we going to do after school? And I've been through it twice now. So Kendra, went to University of Minnesota and graduated and is doing well, and that worked out really well for her. In Corbin's situation and in other clients that I talk to, this trade school thing is coming to fruition, meaning 30 years ago, I think it was majority it was, you got to go to college.
Yeah.
The odd thing was there wasn't a lot of college visits and stuff. It's just, oh, my friend went to college, so I'm going to go to college. And which one you can go to? Oh, I'm going to go where my friend went. I'm hearing a lot more around the trades, and I'm seeing it in the public schools. I'm seeing it locally in our public school where they're now working with Minnesota State. They're also working with some trade schools, and they're going to try to get these kids some experience while in school so that they can maybe do something different than just a 4-year degree in college. I had a client that had a sleep study done in the last 6 months. The person doing their sleep study went to Cass and Manorville School. In school, got trained on how to do that.
Okay.
As soon as they graduated, had an instant job at Mayo Clinic, making good income and helping out Mayo Clinic by doing the sleep study. So those type of things I think are out there. For Corbin personally, we looked around at some different places. We're not sure exactly where he'll end up. He's got some time to figure it out. But I think a trade school would be great for him. He's great with his hands, and I don't believe every kid needs to go to a 4-year school.
Yeah.
So I might have one of each. I might have Kendra that went to the 4-year school, and Corbin might do a trade or something like that. I think it's cool. There's a lot of need out there, and this all ties back into demographics. I just listened to an economist in the last several weeks talk about demographics, and so we're in this high inflationary time period. The Fed's raising interest rates, and one of the things the Fed, what's really interesting about the period we're in right now, is that the Fed actually wants bad news. The Fed doesn't want unemployment to go down. The Fed wants unemployment to go up, which typically is bad. That means people are laying people off. They want things to cool off. So typically in the stock market, you want to have good news like unemployment's coming down and things like that. The Fed actually wants bad news, which makes it good news for the market. It's weird. But I don't believe that we're going to see unemployment go that high based upon demographics. In the United States, we got these baby boomers that we all know are retiring, and COVID, even made that even expedite even faster. If you have those people retiring, we don't have the people yet there to replace them. And so the economy could slow down, but I don't think unemployment's going to 10%. I mean, I think the Fed would like to get it to 5. It's at 3.5 today.
Yeah.
I think they'd like to get it to 5. I don't know if they can get there, even if they put the brakes on hard enough, because you just don't have enough workers, which gets back to the school.
Yep.
We need more kids to go and get a 2-year degree or a 1-year degree or a 9-month degree on specializing in the sleep study or whatever it is to get out there and hit the workforce to do those things. And we need legal immigration. I'm not going to get political on you, but we need more people here. I read a story today about Russian immigrants that are coming here to flee Russia with what's going on with Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
If we can get them here legally and they want to stay in America and make themselves better and become citizens, that's a great thing, I think, to help replace some of these baby boomers. Last thing, because I'm on a soapbox. Last thing with this, this economist had a really good point when he said you look at other countries and you look at demographics, and it's almost like you have a pyramid flipped upside down. So at the top of the pyramid is the older population, and the younger population coming up. Like in China, their one-child policy is going to definitely hurt them as they go forward because they don't have enough people generating the jobs and things below it. In the United States, we have HIPs, is what he explained it, which totally makes sense. You've got the Gen Z population coming. That's almost as big as the baby boomers are as big. They're just not all there yet to replace them. So America's sitting in really good standpoint right now with this Gen Z. So when you look at our pyramid upside down,
Yeah.
ours isn't like this, like Europe is or
Yep.
China is. Ours has some hips to it, which means we're going to be okay. But we've got to get through this time period, and it might be 5 or 10 years before we get there. So anyway, my soapbox says this: get your kids some type of degree of some sort. Doesn't have to be a 4-year.
Yep.
Make sure you're planning on it. You still got to pay for it. So do you have a college savings plan or whatever? Like, have a plan to pay for it, or for them to work and pay for it, whatever your issue is. But there's a lot of conversations going on right now, and I see the pendulum changing towards trades being acceptable to talk about around a dinner table. I certainly think it is. We're doing it at our dinner table. So
Yeah, and it's interesting also, like with the trades, let's just use the example of like somebody that has the skill of Photoshop, right? That at least gets you in the door. And then people can tell, is this someplace that I want to be? Is this like an agency that I want to be at? Or maybe you have the skill of being, early electric, whatever that skill is that gets you in the door. And that tells you a lot about what is that culture that's there. And then is this a group of people that I would actually enjoy spending the next 40 years of my life or most of my waking hours with, right?
Well, and think of the spin-offs of that. I mean, you get in this group, but then you learn a little bit different tweak to it, and now you're working for a different company because you're specializing a little bit different off the Photoshop or whatever. There's just so many iterations.
There's so many different iterations of that, but you have to have something that's a real skill.
Yep.
It's one thing to be able to think, right?
Yep.
And I feel like 4-year colleges do a good job of training thinkers. But you can have a bunch of thinkers that aren't very good at doing anything. Well, that's a horrible place to be in, right?
Yeah.
So at least for me, what was so helpful is I did get the 4-year degree, right? But the thing that got me in the door is I actually had a real skill, and it was, in my case, doing the little video editing or doing the Photoshop part of it. That was that real skill of how to tangibly do something was the important part to my degree in particular. And I do think that the 2-year schools, that shortcut is 100% necessary. Like, I think it's a wonderful way of approaching your career because that's what the employers are looking for is how do I answer this problem right now today? And then can you think, well, that can be solved over a long period of time, and it can also be solved by doing a little bit, additional college here, taking a course there, going to a weekend boot camp here, and then you learn that critical thinking part of it. That doesn't have to come in the 4 years from college. That can come over a lifetime and slowly mature. And that's why I love this idea of trade schools or even high schools that are teaching to a specific trade. I just love that idea.
Yeah. The school that we're looking at down in Iowa, 100% placement.
Yeah.
So we're talking welding, woods, HVAC, all that stuff, 100%. And a lot of these kids are making $60,000 a year coming out of a 2-year school with very little debt because it's not as expensive as some of these other schools. The economics make sense. The training makes sense. I mean, you could get that trade and still run a business. You can do HVAC and then run your plumbing and heating business someday. Yeah. But you just need the skill set to get going. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for spending a little time and talking in depth. I like when we go this in depth.
You bet. Thanks,
Matt. We'll see you back here on the iWealth podcast soon.